Hello, this is Bev Holden from the Clear Thinking Partnership, and this is episode 13 of Collaborate Live. Today I am joined by Kandy Woodfield from NatCen Social Research, and I guess if you saw last week's episode, Dawn Smedley was talking to us about our outer circle and collaborating with our outer circle, and it's kind of through one of my inner circle, John Bartlett, that actually I was introduced to Kandy. So Kandy, you're really welcome to Collaborate Live. Hello.
Hello there, I'm really glad to be here. Finally, we had a few technical problems, but we got there.
We did. So we've persevered, and obviously we had a brief chat a few weeks ago, but I'm really interested to talk to you about collaboration, how it works in the organisation that you're involved with and the people that you collaborate with. So let's start by talking about a really great collaboration that you've been part of, and what were the things that were in place that made it so successful?
Yeah, collaboration, it's an interesting thing for me because I work in a research organisation. I've been here for quite a long time, 17 years, and all we do is collaborate with one another on project work. So collaboration is a big part of our day-to-day sort of run-of-the-mill projects where we have a client, we have to deliver, and we have to collaborate across a number of different departments. That doesn't make us particularly special, but research is also about collaborating with the people taking part in the research and making sure that they buy into the research, they understand the value of doing it, and they understand what their role is in helping to produce really, really great information and data that for us it's about making an impact on society. So collaboration's really kind of been a thread throughout the time that I've worked here and been a researcher. In recent years, I've sort of moved towards starting to build collaborative networks and learning networks for people, and I think that's a different sort of collaboration to project collaboration. With project collaboration, you have a very clear goal, you have an output that you need to work together to produce. With a learning network or a community of practice, it's about producing something from scratch really, and everyone has to collaborate to shape the agenda and actually to create something brand new. So the one that I wanted to talk about is a network that I've been running since 2011 in collaboration with Sage Publications, which has as its purpose really to create a reflective space for researchers who are working with new forms of data. So with the fact we're doing a Google Hangout, it is a new form of data. Lots of social research, which is the sort of research that I'm involved in, or it conventionally involves sitting down in a room and talking to people, doing group discussions or interviews, doing surveys with them. And the new forms of data that social media is producing is really challenging and sort of upturning conventional thinking about how you collect data, the type of data that you use to understand society, and also in a really fundamental way shaking up the relationship between researchers and participants, because people are engaging in social media platforms in a way with researchers in a way that they never have before. So we wanted to create a space where researchers who are trying to use these new forms of data could come together, share their experiences, learn from one another, because it's such a new area, and really be quite open and frank about the problems and difficulties of what they were doing, in the hope that we build a community of practice that supported all of those researchers. So we started in 2011 with a tiny little grant from the National Centre for Research Methods, and with no agenda really beyond let's create a space for people. And we're still going. We now have over 600 members worldwide. So we have members in Australia, America, Russia, across Europe, in South America, all people from all different sectors who are using social media data, whether that's Twitter data, Google Hangouts data, blog data, anywhere where people are socially engaging online. There's data being produced about their attitudes, their experiences. So yeah, so over 600 members who come together either in face-to-face events or online activities like Twitter chats, sharing their experiences and their expertise. And it's been a really interesting journey to go on with those 600 people, because, as I said, we didn't have an agenda, and NatCen led it just by virtue of the fact that we applied for the grant for the seed funding. We're not experts in social media research. It's an area we're exploring too. So we came into it kind of on an equal par with all the participants. And the lovely thing is that it's a network now that's got people who would be deemed by some to be experts in the field, and we've also got brand new researchers, just early career, who've just starting out, who are trying out new tools and techniques, and they're all coming together in a shared space and really working well together. And I think it's been a real journey for me to learn how to do that and to support a network in doing that without being overbearing, leading the agenda. And I've been reading Julian Stodd's new book on sort of social leadership recently, and he talks about magnetic leadership around community building, and I think that's what we've had to do. If you're building a network like this, where you're wanting people to come, be open, be frank about what's worked and not worked for them, you have to provide something sticky for them to adhere to, and for us it was about, if you come and share your experiences with the network, there will be other people who will share things that are useful to you, and it's that kind of magnetic pull of a shared sense of benefit, really, I think. So it's been a really interesting process, not least because around about 60% of the members of it are academic researchers, so work in universities or university research units. The rest are from market research or public and third sector research bodies or the government. But the academic researchers are an interesting group because they do a lot of the work, but they also are judged very much on their individual outcomes. So if you're breaking into a new methodological field or doing something really exciting with new forms of data, there is quite a lot of organisational, institutional pressure for you to kind of hold on to that knowledge, because that's what gets you the research assessment exercise points, if you're the first person to publish on it, if you get into the peer-reviewed journals. So breaking down some of those barriers and getting people to understand that there's value in sharing that sort of knowledge, and also contacts with social media platforms, has been an ongoing challenge. And it's an interesting tension, I think, in a network like this, where people want something for themselves, and yet we need them to be sharing in order to make that work.
Yeah, and I think that is a really interesting dynamic. And when you're saying that you've kind of, it's an ongoing challenge, but it sounds like you've made headway in getting people to open up and to recognise the value. Is there something in particular that you did that you think has been a catalyst for that, creating that openness?
I think it was a number of things, and we didn't get them all right first off. So some of them we refined over time. But I think the first one was, we always started, and it was quite new to me to start really with this as a very blatant, explicit agenda, that this is a peer network. So we are not going to tell you what the agenda is. We are here to support you setting the agenda. So we've spent a lot of time either in online events with people, or using Twitter polls, or using Twitter chats to actually engage with the network members and say, what is it you want the network to do, and all the way through, sort of threading through that. The network can only do what you put into it, so that people are very clear that whilst it's a network for them, it's a network of them, and it's their network, and they have to share the agenda. So that's been a really key part, I think, is constant engagement with the membership, and saying, what do you want, what's changed for you now, it's 6 months down the road, is this still working as a set of activities that we're doing, but also communicating in lots of different ways with them, so that they have lots of different entry points to the network. So I wrote a blog a little while ago about sort of building communities, and I think making the confines of your network permeable, so people can come in and out of it. So we have a blog, we have a Twitter account, we have face-to-face events. I'm on social media a lot, so people will engage with me. We have a hashtag for the network name is actually a hashtag because the network name is too long. So nobody knows what NSS stands for, but everybody knows that that's where you post stuff about social media research if you want some to engage lots of people and get some ideas and suggestions for your research. So I think it's communication, I think it's listening, I think I always call it listening loudly, so actually not just paying lip service to listening to the members of your community, but actually really, really listening to what they're saying, and if they're saying we want more of this, then actually acting on it. So there's something about building up the credibility of the group of people who are kind of leading the activities and making sure that you deliver on it. And I think the other thing that we did, which has been a really huge success, is offered on a regular basis roles in the actual sort of day-to-day running of the network to network members. So we've had a Twitter manager who's not part of the two organisations that lead the network. So she's a brilliant lecturer at Salford University and she manages our Twitter account for us. We've got 3 or 4 people who manage the blog and they themselves go out and find blog writers. So it's a very collaborative process, and it's not just one person leading it, it's a group of people who are sharing ideas. And I think we've got 8 affiliate organisations who are not primarily responsible for making sure the network keeps going, but offer support and guidance, and we meet with them on a sort of quarterly basis to talk to them about what sorts of issues are coming up, what sorts of support they can offer the network. So it's building a web of people really who are prepared to give their time. And you know, I think a big part of it has been the core team role modelling that behaviour. So I always say, you know, and it's a real cliche, but if you don't walk the talk, then there's no point in you trying to do these things. So I'm very active on social media. I share information with people. I try to engage in dialogue with people about the issues that the network are covering, and encouraging other people to do that. And I think that as a result of several of us doing that, it gave people the kind of lead about how the network should interact. I was going to say with itself, but you know what I mean. Have those conversations. Yeah. And I suppose the other key thing for me is planning, which is always a bit of a downer when you're talking about really exciting online social networks and learning networks and communities. But at the end of the day, people need to know what's coming. And it was another mistake I think we made at the start, which was that we were a bit scattergun about our activities and kind of said, you know, oh, let's do a Twitter chat next week. And we didn't really think about how that sticks in people's heads and they remember that things are happening that they need to take part in. So we're now much better about having regular activities and regular communication so that people come to expect a rhythm to the network really, which they can latch onto and share. They know when they're expected to contribute really. And the other thing I think that's quite nice about having a rhythm with a sort of collaborative relationship is that you can shake it up if things aren't working. So if people get used to a rhythm, there's always the opportunity to disrupt it and do something different. So last year we did a complete virtual conference. So that gave people who are outside of the UK a chance to really have the whole conference experience, have a whole day of the talks that people who'd come to a face-to-face experience had had. So it's been a really, really interesting journey, and to see, you know, it's cross-disciplinary. So it's sociologists, it's computer scientists, it's people who work in the media, in journalist research, and they're all sharing different types of practices and actually dealing with some really knotty issues. So again, I think it's about giving people permission to talk about things that haven't worked so well and saying that's all right because that's what the network needs to hear. You know, we need to understand where the potholes are. Ethics has been a huge issue for the network, and getting people to talk about thorny ethical issues, you know, where you've been doing research and you've suddenly felt uncomfortable about whether or not you're doing something that's ethical. And there's been lots of talk about that this year with the issues that Facebook had around its experiment on emotional contagion. But so some of the stuff that people are talking about is really quite it makes them quite vulnerable, and I think you have to build a sense of trust and openness in relationships, in collaborations like this, where people will share, because otherwise it would just die a death if there wasn't that sense that this is a trusted group of people who are giving me the space to talk about something that was quite painful or, you know, quite difficult for me to handle.
Yeah.
And passion, I think passion at the base of it. Everybody really wants to improve their practice. So as long as you hold on to that passion and allow people the space to keep sharing it, I think the network creates a sort of energy of its own. Sorry,
Wow.
Bev, I was...
No, that's okay. No, something just occurred to me, but it'll take us off down a different track. But what I'm really curious about is, having got the community and the network to the point that you have, what's next? What do you see developing? Because it sounds very fluid and organic in terms of the way that the collaborative pattern of working has been established. So where does it go next? How does it evolve further?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A question we've been asking ourselves, because I think the other thing about this is that there's a constant flow of new career researchers coming to the methods. We have the existing membership, and how do you keep it alive? Just do it. You don't just want to do the same old, same old. So we're actually launching a book of blogs at the end of October now, which was basically another way to inject a different rhythm into the network, to give everyone a chance to contribute and see that contribution in a visible way that would be recognised within their own professional circles. So we took the lead from the book of blogs that David D'Souza did with the HR community previously, and followed exactly the same process really. I tweeted out, we blogged, invited anyone to contribute who had something to say, and we're just in the kind of stages of the final edits of that now. But so the next 3 months will be all about providing the authors of that book with platforms to talk about the issues they raised in their blogs, publicising the book, promoting it at various different forums, and really getting the network better known, and hopefully drawing in more new members from different sectors. So there are some sectors where we haven't quite tapped into as much as I would have liked, like the market research sector. So that's one big thing that's on our agenda, and that creating outputs which can be shared with people outside of the network, like a book. The blog site is great for doing that, but it's quite nice to give people another a different text to deal with and to see what we're doing. And the other thing that we're looking at is, and this will be a huge collaborative challenge, is how does the network collaborate with the platforms that hold the data? So Google, Microsoft, WordPress, whoever those software houses are. There's no imperative on those software houses to actually give access to data to researchers, and some of them are good at it and some of them aren't, and they certainly, let's put it this way, we're not very high on their priority list in terms of what their business orientation is, so we have to find a way to get talking to them. So I'd love us as a network to actually start that dialogue and start collaborating with them around, you know, you've got great social data that can really help improve society. If you let researchers at it, we can do really interesting things, but it's really difficult to get through the front door of those places. So that's the next collaborative challenge for the network.
Fantastic. Kandy, thank you so much for joining me today and for explaining your experiences. It's absolutely fascinating, and I've loved the things that you've said. And I love that point about magnetic leadership, and it sounds like you're creating a really magnetic community, and it's really irresistible for people, which and explaining the way in which you've done that, I think, is really valuable for people to hear. So thank you so much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure. So you have been episode 13 of Club. It's been where I am. It's all very bright and I'm squinting at you now. But this has been episode 13 of Collaborate Live. We've been joined by Kandy Woodfield from NatCen Social Research, and we will be back later today with another Collaborate Live, episode 14 with Kev White. But for now, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Kandy, and goodbye from Clear Thinking until next time. Thanks.
Thanks, Bev.
Okay.